Awesome.
Okay,
Thank you.
great. All right, we'll start again. I'm Jessica Peiska here, District 5 Supervisor and Chair of the Risk Reduction Authority. This town hall tonight is to talk about our climate adaptation plan. The Risk Reduction Authority is a joint powers authority with the county, the Lake County Watershed Protection District, both cities, the fire districts, tribal nations, and water purveyors. We work to counter the risks that affect us all that are climate related in our county. So I'm going to pass this over to Director Turner to kick us off for tonight's town hall.
Great. Thank you very much, Supervisor Pyska. To all of our, 2 to 3 people that are either in the RRA or from the public, welcome and thank you so much for giving us some of your evening time. I appreciate it. We've been working really hard this past year and a half on Lake County 2050 project, and part of that overlaps with the Climate Adaptation Plan project, which is why we're meeting tonight. So you'll see probably a number of familiar faces. Uh, we have staff here. I'm Community Development Director. We have the Deputy Administrator, Shannon Walker Smith, who has been instrumental in this process, as well as Terry Logston, our Chief Climate Resiliency Officer. Sorry, have to see it written in my head so I get it right. And that's this is all part of our county team. John Vandervoort with the RRA. And let's see, we also have members of the PlaceWorks team, which has been instrumental in helping us get this far. And I will turn it over to them to lead this meeting as well. But I just wanted to take a minute to say thank you so much. We have relied so much on public input, stakeholder input to get us this far. And your continued attendance and participation is really valuable. So thank you. I will turn it over to Jacqueline and/or Tammy.
Thanks, Maria. I will take it from here. I'm just going to quickly share my screen. And can everyone see the presentation?
Looks good.
Yes. Great. Okay, so good evening and thank you for attending this town hall focused on the Climate Adaptation Plan. So for this presentation, I'll start off with introductions to the project team, which Maria already went over, provide an overview of the adaptation plan, summarize the process and the results of the climate vulnerability analysis, go over the pillars of landscape resilience, which is the framework for the adaptation plan, provide an overview of the contents of the adaptation plan, and then go over next steps in the process. And then we'll open it up for discussion. So as Maria mentioned, this project is being led by county staff, the Community Development Department, Office of Climate Resilience, and in partnership with the Lake County Resource Conservation District. My name is Jacqueline Protzman-Rohr. I'm the project manager on the consultant team, and I'm joined this evening by Tammy Seal, the principal in charge, and Autumn Paynton, the key staff on our consultant team. So to start off with a bit of project background, this effort began with the establishment of the Risk Reduction Authority in 2018, and then the formation of the Lake County Office of Climate Resiliency in 2022. So this enabled a partnership to form to go after and receive the California Adaptation Planning Grant for the Equitable Climate Safe Lake project in 2023. And then later that same year, the pillars of landscape resilience were adopted as the foundation for resilience across the county. And in 2024, the project team began preparing the climate vulnerability analysis, a countywide evacuation study, and the climate adaptation plan, which is what we're focusing on this evening. And now for the adaptation plan overview. So the goal of the adaptation plan is to develop a roadmap for building climate resilience across Lake County, including the cities of Clearlake and Lakeport. This process identifies the most vulnerable communities, natural systems, and build assets through the climate vulnerability analysis, and the strategies and actions in the adaptation plan itself will integrate with the existing pillars of landscape resilience to create a cohesive approach for resilience across all sectors. The adaptation plan will provide practical and feasible solutions to reduce climate risks, considering existing resources, gaps, capacity constraints, with clear pathways for implementation. The plan is being developed based on the four-step process outlined in the California Adaptation Planning Guide. During the first phase, the project team initiated the process by defining the populations, natural systems, economic drivers, infrastructure, and service systems vital to the community, and then which climate change hazards would likely affect these populations and community assets. Phase 2 was focused on assessing vulnerability, or the degree to which populations and community assets will be affected by climate change hazards. And the development of the climate vulnerability analysis was the main work product of this phase. And currently we're in phase 3 of the process, which focuses on defining the adaptation framework, which are the pillars of landscape resilience, and then developing strategies and actions for those pillars. And the next phase, phase 4, will focus on implementation, where funding will be secured for programs and actions listed in the plan. Implementation will be monitored and evaluated, and then the plan will be adjusted over time to account for capacity and the needs of the Lake County community. So the Climate Adaptation Plan is intended to be a living document that supports other plans and programs throughout the county, and therefore integrates with several other plans to do so. So this image shows 6 of the plans that provide information for the adaptation plan, or are opportunities to integrate information from the CAP process into city and county operations. So the Lake County General Plan Health and Safety element uses the climate vulnerability analysis to inform long-term climate resilience policies and programs countywide. And then the city safety elements can also use the vulnerability analysis for the same purpose. The Climate Adaptation Plan can use the Community Wildfire Protection Plan to coordinate wildfire fuel reduction projects and evacuation route protections. And then the Multi-Jurisdictional Hazard Mitigation Plan can act as a tool to implement the adaptation plan strategies with the CAP's long-term climate-focused strategies and the LHMP's near-term hazard reduction projects that are updated about every 5 years. The capital improvement plans of the county and the 2 cities can also act as implementation tools, with the climate vulnerability analysis and the strategies in the plan informing infrastructure planning projects for resilience. Similarly, the emergency operations plan can enhance emergency response protocols for different hazard events evaluated by the CAP. And then the drought resilience plan is a topic-focused plan supporting over 80 small water systems in the county, and the CAP can provide a broad framework for implementing drought preparedness strategies. And finally, the Blue Ribbon Committee for the Rehabilitation of Clearlake provides recommendations for restoring Clearlake, which can be incorporated into the CAP to support the economy, ecosystems, and heritage of the area. So with that background, I'll go into the climate vulnerability analysis. So to start off with, what is the vulnerability analysis? According to the California Adaptation Planning Guide, it's the primary document for these types of analyses across the state. A vulnerability analysis is an assessment of how a changing climate may harm a community and which elements are most vulnerable to the effects based on an assessment of exposure, sensitivity, potential impacts, and adaptive capacity. So our project team used a 4-step process for evaluating the vulnerabilities. Step 1 was identifying exposure to hazards. Step 2 was analyzing sensitivity of populations and community assets, and then the potential impacts of the hazards. Step 3 is to evaluate adaptive capacity, which is the ability of populations or community assets to prepare for, respond to, and recover from hazards using existing resources. And then those components were combined together to assess overall vulnerability. So the analysis itself evaluated how 91 different population groups and community assets across unincorporated Lake County and the cities of Lakeport and Clearlake were vulnerable to 8 different climate change hazards. And here are the key findings from that analysis. We found that wildfire and smoke create the most vulnerabilities across sectors countywide. For populations, most vulnerable are people of color and immigrant communities, financially constrained households, those with chronic illnesses or disabilities, older adults, people with high outdoor exposure, such as unhoused persons or outdoor workers, and persons in tribal communities. And then the most vulnerable community assets we found were energy and communication infrastructure and services, homes, especially older and manufactured homes, transportation infrastructure, including both state highways and local roads, agriculture as an economic driver, and outdoor recreation and tourism as economic drivers as well. So the project team took the results of the climate vulnerability analysis and integrated them with the pillars of landscape resilience, which I'll now go over. Adopted in 2023, the Pillars of Landscape Resilience framework is based on the Tahoe Central Sierra Initiative, and with feedback from tribal members, and the images for the pillars were adapted to better reflect Lake County. So this framework recognizes the interdependence of ecological and social systems and provides metrics for measuring progress towards ecosystem and community resilience. There are 10 pillars total representing desired landscape outcomes. These include air quality, biodiversity conservation, carbon sequestration, economic diversity, fire adapted communities, fire dynamics, forest resilience, social and cultural well-being, water security, and wetland integrity. So each of these components are being incorporated into the full adaptation plan, and I'll now provide an overview of some of the contents of that plan. So the plan itself covers the unincorporated areas of Lake County along with the incorporated cities of Clearlake and Lakeport, with a long-term planning horizon similar to that of a general plan. This is a plan for long-term resilience across the county, which can be updated regularly based on implementation progress. The plan will contain background sections summarizing the 8 climate-related hazards evaluated in the vulnerability analysis and the results of this assessment, which integrates best available science and local knowledge and lived experiences across the county. The resilience strategies and actions will be based on the pillars of landscape resilience, identifying feasible solutions that provide multiple benefits. And the project team recognizes the great work that is already happening across the county and therefore will highlight existing partnerships and programs wherever possible. The resilience strategies are organized by goal, strategy, and action. The goals are meant to be broad outcomes or end states describing desired future conditions. The strategies are policies, programs, and approaches to achieve the goal. And the actions are the implementation steps for each strategy. And then each action contains more detailed information for implementation, including responsible and supporting agencies, timeframe for implementation, general cost estimates, and potential funding sources. And we do have draft goals for each of the 10 pillars. So for air quality, it's focused on resilience to smoke and poor air quality events. Biodiversity conservation is focused on the county's network of native species and ecological communities is healthy, abundant, and distributed across the landscape. Carbon sequestration, enhanced carbon sequestration capacity across forests, ag lands, and working lands, and wetlands. Economic diversity, a sustainable and resilient natural resource-based economy. Fire adapted communities, fire prepared and resilient communities with capacity to manage desired fire and suppress unwanted fire. For fire dynamics, fire burns that in ecologically beneficial and socially acceptable ways that perpetuates landscape heterogeneity, and rarely threatens human safety or infrastructure. Forest resilience, resilient forest ecosystems that provide essential ecosystem services, support cultural heritage, and sustain economic opportunities. Social and cultural well-being, a community connected to nature to recreate, maintain, and improve overall health. Water security, reliable, safe, and equitable access to clean, potable water. And last but not least, wetland integrity, protected and restored wetland and riparian ecosystems that provide essential ecosystem services. So this slide shows examples of some of the strategy concepts for each of the pillars. For biodiversity conservation, this could cover strengthening habitat connectivity, implementing an invasive species management plan, and protecting and restoring aquatic habitat and water quality. For water security, example strategies could be diversifying water supply, improving drought preparedness, and strengthening collaborative water quality monitoring. For social and cultural well-being, integrating public health into emergency planning, expanding access to climate resilient resources, and strengthening tribal co-management of natural resources. And then economic diversity, some ideas are supporting climate resilient agriculture practices, fostering healthy and sustainable tourism and recreation, and ensuring equitable hazard preparedness access for small businesses. And as for next steps, this shows the overall CAP timeline. As mentioned previously, the project began in 2023 with outreach associated with the Lake County General Plan update occurring in 2023 and 2024. The climate vulnerability analysis was completed earlier this year and is now available on the Lake County 2050 website. And we're currently in the plan development phase, so conducting outreach and engagement activities and then drafting the strategies and actions for the plan. And once adopted, the implementation phase will begin, which will likely be this winter and beyond. We have already received quite a bit of feedback from the community related to the climate vulnerability analysis, and I wanted to share a couple of those quotes. So these are a few quotes from one of the open-ended questions asking community members of their big ideas for resilience in Lake County. We heard the importance of rehabilitating Clearlake, undergrounding electrical lines, and regular control burns, and the use of cattle and livestock grazing to limit fuel for wildfire. For populations, we heard making local home ownership a priority and ensuring all voices are heard and considered in this process. For project-specific ideas, we heard finishing the Middle Creek floodplain and wetland reconnection, and creating microgrids at water plants, shelters, and emergency operation centers. And as far as next steps, we're currently conducting outreach with interested parties, including service providers and city and county department staff. We'll also be releasing the Climate Adaptation Plan for public review soon, and then having study sessions with city and county planning commissions, city councils, the Board of Supervisors, and the Lake County General Plan Advisory Committee and local area plan advisory committees. We also encourage you all to visit the project website at lakecounty2050.org, and this slide has a link to that website. So with that, that does conclude the presentation portion of the meeting, and I'll now open it up, and I'll stop sharing my screen and open it up for any questions or comments you all have on the adaptation plan and the process.
I'm just taking a look at whatever format we're on right now so that when people want to know how to raise their hand, it looks like we've got a heart on the bottom with the react. And if you click on that, that brings your raise hand, clapping, all those expressive thingies.
And I just wanted to mention that Mireya's team, primarily with Shannon Walker-Smith and possibly myself, will be making a tour all of next month in October to the municipal advisory committees and town halls to get feedback from people directly. And it looks like
And
Kevin has his hands up.
yep.
But you gotta unmute, Kevin.
Yes.
There we go. I found my hand button, but I couldn't find the mute button. So first off, I do really appreciate all the efforts, County Mireya, your team, PlaceWorks in bringing a lot of these pieces together, and we've been happy to be a piece of that. You know, Shannon's been beating us constantly. Get your comments in, get your comments in, and so. But my question, a little bit more technical, because I'm always the one that, okay, you know, looking at the next steps and how we can utilize these documents to pursue funding and different things to go after some of these ones. My first question is kind of on the maybe on the technical side. What's the difference between the Climate Adaptation Plan and a Climate Action Plan? Are they interchangeable or are they different?
That is a great question. So the adaptation plan focuses on climate resilience. So understanding that the hazards are going to happen, likely worsen, and responding to those hazards, either preparing for the response actions or recovery process. The climate action plan is focused on greenhouse gas emissions. So different sectors, transportation, water, built environment, and focused on reducing those greenhouse gas emissions through the various sectors. So this plan is only focused on adaptation.
Because I mean, one of the challenges we've always had in Lake County is, I mean, we kind of in this kind of worked to our disadvantage, even though it should have probably worked to our advantage. I mean, for a long time, those climate action plans and the like were required elements for entities that were, you know, out of compliance with you know, air board standards and different things like that. And we've always had the luxury, one of the beautiful things about Lake County is that we have been in attainment and, you know, and frequently have, you know, some of the highest air quality in the country, but we never went forward with some of these pieces. So I think, you know, this is fantastic that we're getting here and putting some of these in there, because it seems like a lot of times a precursor to some of these funding pieces is having some of these plans in place. So in your opinion, having the climate adaptation plan completed, does that get us to that marker, or are we still going to be outside of some funding that might be available for a climate action plan as well?
So the adaptation plan will set the county and cities, or all of Lake County, up for potential going after funding opportunities for resilience projects. And some of these projects do have greenhouse gas emissions co-benefits, but it would set you up more for the adaptation resilience side, hazard reduction side, instead of the greenhouse gas reduction side.
Which we were not going to score very high on the greenhouse gas reduction side anyway. So I mean, this is the critical piece. But no, I appreciate your assistance on those. By making them both caps, it really, you know, that's it makes interchangeable. But no, I just want to reiterate again, I think this has been a fantastic process. This really does set us up. You know, I'm reading through the plans and getting it there. There's some good insight in there, but I mean, you know, a lot of these things are all these studies that we're doing are kind of, you know, setting up, showing that these same things, these same vulnerability aspects. So I'm really hopeful that we'll be able to utilize these documents, you know, day one to start going after some of these different pieces. So I appreciate all your guys' help and looking forward to the implementation phase.
Any others, comments, questions on the adaptation plan itself or the overall process? If not, that is okay. I do have a couple of discussion questions kind of to spark some feedback. Uh, what programs, if any, or resources or services have been most successful in helping the community to prepare for or respond to hazards, such as wildfires, floods, extreme heat, and drought?
Lead off with an example. One of the things that I find has been a very valuable tool is Watch Duty, the new app that gives us real-time actual data on fires that are happening and keeps us updated on that. That's essential for us to know kind of if we need to start packing or if, if we're fine. That's been helpful.
Any other tools or resources available that have been helpful in the past?
I think building off of what Murray just said too. I mean, I think, where we're looking, here we are just, days separated from our 10-year anniversary of the Valley Fire. Just a lot of those communication tools and the zone haven and some of those other pieces have definitely put us in a much better capacity to respond to these emergencies as they go. And I don't think that it's an accident that uh, many of the fires that we have experienced over the past couple of years have been dealt with quickly, and people have been more quiet. I don't think that that's an accident. I think all those things are playing into to those as well. I'd also would state too the the small programs that we've already started for home hardening have demonstrated, I think, some really great opportunities to build on and widen that to the larger aspects of the community. I think all of the community firewise groups and the like have also really put us in a much better position than we were just even a few years ago.
And Elliot, I did see your hand was raised. Did you want to add to that?
No, Kevin, you just read my mind. I was basically going to call out the significance of, our tune-up here is all the hyper-local community-based initiatives, particularly the Firewise communities, the municipal advisory committees, and that the degree to which, this can be kind of spread out through those and kind of increase the pipeline of information and engagement through those mechanisms, I think will be just long-term. We need to actually spread this into be talk about a culture of fire adaptation, but it's a culture of climate adaptation throughout the county.
What both of you have said as it relates to the number of Firewise communities that we now have in Lake County. I think we're close to 24. For fire safe councils, we have the Lake County Fire Safe Council, but also the Canocti Fire Safe Council and the South Lake Fire Safe Council, which has been around for way over a decade, and the new Redbud Fire Safe Council within the city of Clearlake. Additionally, the Office of Emergency Services has the ready.lakecountyca.gov website that tries to pull all the information together and make that available to the public. And then North Coast Opportunities doing the EPIC, Emergency Preparedness in Communities, and our Red Cross Climate Adaptation Program that has been working with community organizations on resilience centers for primarily cooling centers during extended heat waves. And so from where we were 10 years ago to today, we are so much better prepared. And for me, this plan, particularly through the lens of the pillars of resilience, will just be able to give us more focus and ideas.
Oh, Terra. Terra's a new improvement for preparation. They're teaching people about how to now apply cultural fire practices to help with that. What else?
Yeah, and they're trained, and they have a very large grant for workforce development. And then, of course, we have CLERC, the Clearlake
I
Environmental
was gonna
Research
say,
Center,
yeah, Cindy, jump on in here.
and our Resource Conservation District, who just gave a presentation this week, South Lake County, to talk to private forested landowners on funding that's available and programs that are available to help them make their own properties more wildfire resilient. So if either of you would like to talk about the North Bay Forest Improvement Project or what the RCD is doing, that'd be great as well.
Yeah, I'm happy to jump in and share a little bit about what the RCD is doing. I saw you come off mute, Cindy. Please jump in whenever you're ready. But yeah, the RCD has a number of ways in which we are working really directly with landowners throughout the county to ensure that the forests on those properties and those private forests, which constitute a fairly significant portion of the land in the county, are maintained and resilient to future wildfire events. And it's an area in which we're really actively deepening our work currently, and it's a huge priority for us as well. So, and that does build really directly on and is very compatible with Clerk's North Bay FIP program. Cindy, I don't know if you wanted to share anything about that program.
Yeah, sorry, I came in at the tail end of that question because I had to run out and put out and try to separate a couple cats. But yes, we are working with small landowners as well to try to help with forest health and landowners that couldn't normally afford such work on their property, as well as like today I was down looking at the Hidden Valley Lake fuel break, trying to get that established. And so different activities that we're doing like that to try to make the community more resilient and assist with absentee property owners that cannot make their properties wildfire safe and everything. And I would just say, yes, the Canocti Fire Safe Council, my other hat, we are doing much of the same, trying to get grants for the area for the mobile home parks where there's people that are, some people that are disadvantaged and unable to take care of their large swaths of land. So try to just reinforce the community for wildfire safety.
Great. And I just want to give a shout out to Bill Grudy and his podcast of the Canocti Fire Safe Council. I can't recall, maybe it's monthly. I don't remember how often he does it.
It varies.
It varies, but it's very, he talks to very interesting people, and it is a great resource because it is all Lake County focused.
Absolutely.
So I will ask another one of our discussion questions. Oh, Kate Schmidt, I see your hand is raised. Feel free to come off mute.
Good evening. I'm glad to see some more of our RCD people here. I have a question since I fully support the idea of expanding tribal involvement. Could you please be a little more specific in exactly how you are doing outreach to the 7 tribal nations within Lake County so they have direct involvement in your climate adaptation plan?
And Maria, would you like me to take that, or would you
Go right ahead.
Okay.
Good question.
So we know that the tribes are such an important part of the Lake County community and are involving them throughout the process. So we're combining our efforts with the Lake County 2050 project to ensure that there's kind of a continuous dialogue with the tribes. We met with several of the tribes earlier this year, maybe at the end of last year as well, to ask them questions about climate vulnerabilities and just general adaptation and how they respond to different hazards. We're also having them review draft work products to ensure that they have sufficient review time in order to provide substantial comments for the adaptation plan as well. And we've considered in the strategy development how the tribes can be used as a resource for many of the strategies, such as wildfire management and others.
And I'll just say, I convene in my role as the tribal liaison for the county, a TIPO, which is Tribal Historic Preservation Officer, and county meetings once a month. And the team from Community Development was at the meeting today to talk about this plan and to set dates and locations for larger tribal outreach on the Climate Adaptation Plan. The great question, Kate.
Just as a follow-up, is there a place on the RRA for a tribal liaison, someone who has a seat at the table?
Actually, 4 of the tribal governments are directors and members of the Risk Reduction Authority.
Perfect, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Are we ready for question 2?
It seems like it, so I will go ahead and ask it. What challenges or barriers are preventing residents and community organizations from implementing climate adaptation measures like defensible space, home hardening, water conservation, or emergency preparedness?
There's money? Want more detail than that?
Details are welcome, but financial barriers we've heard, I think, consistently throughout the process.
Yeah, I mean,
I definitely will. Oh, sorry.
Go
no,
ahead.
go ahead. Go ahead.
I definitely will second the money portion for most people, just from talking to people. But even having funds available, as clerk does for different projects, a lot of times it's just the access to people and getting to the people, a way to communicate with homeowners and property owners. So I think there's a disconnect in technological abilities to get online for certain things, as well as just access to, I've heard access to public meetings and access to the resources, learning about the resources. I know it's one thing that Canocti Fire Safe Council tries to go out and do door-to-door education to people, and NCO is great at helping us with that. Canocti Fire Safe Council and clerk, they volunteered and had their CERT crews help with that, but access to people is huge.
And Elliot, go for it.
Thanks. Yeah, I just to follow up on this theme of creating a culture of adaptation, and I think it's one thing to think about is just what are the ways in which we can give greater visibility to the successes, both individual and organizational. Either at the various fairs and festivals that we have. I know it would be great if we had like a county climate champion, or do that in each of the 8 planning areas and say, okay, there's a climate or wildfire resilience champion, ways that we can highlight the people who have actually dealt with these issues, like the significant issues we have with absentee landowners and home hardening finance. Really kind of find a way to just through I think public acknowledgement, raise the visibility of that, raise the expectation that this is how we live here.
Well, and I want to follow up on that. So I guess I'm just going to keep my camera off because this is really bad. The education piece is really big too. There's a lot of new people that have moved to the county and they don't understand the importance of defensible space or what that even means. So when I look around my neighborhood, which was completely burned out 10 years ago, now I've got most of the people that live here are new to the community, new to the area, have not lived here longer than 2 to 3 years, maybe 5. And I see like firewood stacked against people's houses and and yards full of weeds and brush. And I know that people have the resources and I know they're able-bodied to do it, but I cannot go door to door and talk to everybody. Other communities have developed like block captains, and there's other programs to help with that education. But I think that there's just a real lack of knowledge right now because of how much our community's changed.
Those
And
are
the zone zero too. It's not just education. There's going to be resistance. Like people don't want to have to do these things. And so we're really going to have to do a lot of education, a lot of outreach, a lot of handholding, and a lot of setting examples like Elliot was saying.
And that's a great lead into what I was going to say. There's also a grieving process of having to let go of what you thought your home with a white, however you imagined it. And now you have to take out trees that you love because they're too close to your home, or you have to take it out and exchange it for something else. When it comes to zone zero, you have to get rid of everything everything flammable from 5 feet around your house. And those regulations are coming and there's a reason for them, but there is, an overall sense of grief around, climate change and what's happening and after fires and after floods and after any natural disaster, but not being able to go back to normal is really difficult. I haven't found yet any great, good, applicable way of expressing that to community. And I hope to find it because it's very difficult. And with our, extensive tree mortality, it's very difficult.
And
Yeah,
traumatic.
and I'll just follow that, Terry. I think that's a really important point and something we definitely discuss on our staff is, so much of fuels reduction work and so much of building relationships with landowners and homeowners is really emotional too. There's a huge emotional component that we have to be attentive to and sensitive to, and is, just an important force in all of this. I guess I also wanted to add, just to put a finer point on the financial kind of barrier piece, just wanted to mention that, a lot of the funding streams that we have access to as a resource conservation district are structured to flow through cost share programs. So in order to gain access to funding support, landowners have to be able to contribute a certain amount, which is prohibitive in many cases. And that's primarily related to our work in support of NRCS, like through EQIP and other federal cost share programs. And then the other thing I wanted just to mention briefly that I don't think has come up yet is in some instances, particularly when it comes to fuels reduction work, there can be a shortage of local contractors and teams that are able to complete that work. And so without, in the absence of a strong local workforce, it can hinder, the urgency that with which we can respond to some of these issues.
And Shannon, I see your hand is raised.
Yes, I just wanted to acknowledge that in addition to that workforce development piece, which I think is really critical, I also think that there's a piece about climate adaptation in our building processes. So not having stick built or wood built be the default, but looking at different technology, for example, 3D printed concrete buildings that are climate adapted. They're better for extreme heat, they're better for extreme cold, they last, they don't burn. You know, we still have in excess of 10,000 people visiting the Coliseum every month now, and it was built hundreds of years ago. So looking at welcoming building innovation. So it's not just home hardening what's here, but welcoming innovation to climate adapted structures. And so to that point, I would like to see, because I didn't hear it as you were talking earlier, I would like to see something in the plan about a county, including the cities, of course, lending library that has pre-approved plans for buildings that are climate adapted. For example, 3D printed buildings. Like, make it easy for people to build climate adapted buildings. That was all I wanted to add. Thank you.
I love that. Yeah, that's really good. Yeah, let's do that.
Any other challenges or barriers? And hearing or seeing
nothing new on it, just kind of reiterating some of the things that have already been said there. I mean, I think money, obviously, number one, but beyond that, the information sharing, just as a means, it has to be over and over and over again. I mean, I have found the whole process, especially in regards to Zone Zero, to be very overwhelming. I think Terry hit it right on the head, that there's an emotional component that comes along with that. I think Supervisor Pyska and I were talking at our last risk reduction authority that some of the most intense fights that we've had with our spouses have come over kind of Zone Zero provisions and in that tree or that plant and different pieces. But I have found that the continual access to the information helps it become less overwhelming as well. Some of the presentations we've seen on the home hardening, it chunks it out. At first, I can stand back in my driveway and look at the house and go, this is overwhelming. Why don't we just move? But at the same time, when you start to work through these programs and see these different pieces and chunk it out into different pieces, it does become possible, and you start to see a path. So I think the information sharing creates a critical component on that aspect as well.
I will move on to kind of the opposite end of that question. What solutions or support would help reduce those barriers, help with adaptation and resilience across the county? And these can be projects, government operations, education programs, engagement, anything across the board.
I think just making it easier. I think Pastor Shannon's the one there is brilliant, in getting, a more usable toolkit, in people's hands so they can see that there are options. I think highlighting the great successes that we have out of some of these kind of test areas where we have done the home hardening stuff successfully. And that doesn't have to be just in our own backyards. I think we were analyzing, some things that Paradise was doing that was having an immediate and direct effect on folks being able to get off of the FAIR plan and back into traditional insurance things. So I think building on those little successes and publishing those success stories out there is probably
Hi, I'm having a little bit of technical problems, but I thought that one very helpful thing would be some sort of assistance for people with physical challenges to help help do the clearing that's necessary. And that would be good for both seniors and people with disability. I know currently the IHSS program doesn't allow for IHSS people to do that, and I've heard that Habitat for Humanity might do that, but it would be good that Lake County offered help to people that just plain can't do that kind of work.
Very good point, Miss Farnworth. Yep. Julia just put into the chat to promote disaster preparedness centers, similar to like a lending library of tools that could help people to take care of their properties. Another good idea.
John?
Yeah, beat me to it, Terry. Yeah, and the Fireside Council actually does currently administer a mobile tool cache, not currently mobile, but a tool cache that offers access to all Lake County residents to rent out some of the types of materials that Julie mentioned in the chat there, primarily for defensible space clearing for folks to move forward defense space clearing work on their own properties. And I can drop some additional materials for that program, which Julia Sullivan just did in the chat.
I was thinking we should start doing radio ads. You know, there are all these cool things that even I don't hear about, and I'm rolling around in this preparatory stuff all the time. So I'm sure that there's a lot that the public doesn't get to hear about.
And we are hoping that the adaptation plan is a place that brings all of these plans and tools together. So there is one place that has some kind of a list of all of the different programs and studies and resources that are already happening. And Julia, I did see you come off of mute for a second. Did you want to add anything?
I appreciate that. Thank you. And sorry to come late. Yeah, these disaster preparedness stations, I think it's important also to educate community members on how to utilize these tools. I don't know about renting as much as when there's a true disaster, there's no time for renting anything out. It's more check out and get something done. And therefore, I'm going to use the concept of the community scientists that we have for the situation with the chi counting and things like that, where somebody's trained, takes a class. We offer large classes, and they're trained to check out tools and use them in a disaster. And I know everything's mainly focused on fire, and rightfully so, but we're also a water county, and flooding is serious, and we have levee systems that can't hold 100-year storm capacity, much less the 500-year storm capacity. So looking at that component as well as fire, I think is very, very important as we move into required climate adaptivity. Thank you.
Thank you, Julia. Any others, solutions or support that would help? Not seeing anyone come off of mute or raise their hand. Oh, Donna, feel free to unmute yourself.
Hello. This might be a bit out of the box, but as an educator, I've done something like this here locally, and it's bringing a family and children-centered home hardening challenge into it, like create a checklist of simple home hardening actions like cleaning your gutters and a checked off list of completed items, and children help with the safe tasks like the reflective numbers or pulling small weeds. And then each completed checklist gets like a resilience gift, like a reusable water bottle or something like that, or do a key climate champions program with stickers or badges. Like everybody loved the license plates, even though all they had to do was fill out the challenge when we were doing surveys. And then do a tribal and natural history tie-in, partner with the local tribe and do a cultural fire knowledge and youth storytelling so that kids can see resilience as part of heritage, and give keys like wooden tokens or painted rocks as symbolic gifts representing protecting their area for generations. Just little things that gets the whole family involved. And I think a lot of the people in my neighborhood like to get something. It's like, sure, I'll think about doing it, but if they actually get something in return, it makes it more exciting. Thank you.
Thank you, Donna.
Hi, I don't know if you can hear me, but
Yes, we can.
okay, good. I would like to say that the people also need to learn how to use tools safely, both for their own safety, own eye protection, own limb protection, but also so that they don't start a fire while they're trying to clear their land. As someone near my area in Jerusalem Valley area started a fire by and burned down their neighbor's house during the grade fire several years ago, and that was, I think, after the Rocky or one of those fires that back then. That basically they shouldn't have been using that riding mower that hit a rock and caused a fire. And so those things need to be discussed, as well as I remember there was several good videos and YouTube videos on fire safe planting and the different, what do you call it, the safe way to plant and how far you put the trees, done by Cal Fire and other fire agencies and marine and more affluent places than we are, but that all those things are good, and we just need to remind people to do that. And also, just like a previous person said, that this community has changed outright since 10 years ago, and they don't know, and they need to learn. So that's and again, I don't know if you heard my comment before, but I think that having some sort of organization, whereas maybe get nice strong kids involved with lots of energy to help seniors and other disabled type folk, uh, to help them get more fire safe. I remember back when I lived in Chicagoland at Highland Park, and Evanston, both have suburbs of Chicago, both had the youth employment service, and so those kids got job experience while providing services to the community. And so their nice, strong, young, undamaged bodies would be put to good use doing something like this. Anyway, that's an idea.
Thank you. Those are all great ideas. And we are at 7. I believe that's the time we're intending to end the meeting today. Maria or Terry, any last closing remarks that you'd like to make?
I just want to thank everybody. These were really good ideas brought to us. Ms. Farnworth, you have awesome ideas, and I think it's worth saying a few times that it would be super helpful if we could harness young, undamaged bodies to get out there and help those of us who are getting a little slower now. I wouldn't mind. But I just want to thank everybody for taking the time to bring us these ideas. It even though, you know, people like Terry and Kevin and all our PlaceWorks people, we think about this all the time. It's these fresh ideas that actually make me more excited than when I started this meeting. So thanks, everybody. I hope that you will clearly see your input reflected in these planning documents as we're going forward. Supervisor Pyska, did you have anything?
No, I just want to thank everybody for joining us. We got a few extra people as we went along. Thank you for your participation in this. This is an ongoing process. We're going to be doing the roadshow at the Max. There's going to be a lot of other opportunities in case there's something more you want to add to. But thanks, everybody. And we're at 7:02, so we'll have a good night.
Yeah, one last thing. Pastor Shannon was asking about accessibility to that slide deck. Jacqueline, is that something that we can post on the Lake County 2050 website, maybe under the events?
Yes, we
Okay,
can definitely do
good.
that. And a similar presentation will be at upcoming engagement events.
Awesome.
And-
So that's lakecounty2050.org, not .com, because we're not in Illinois, .org for the California one.
And this is recorded and it'll be posted to the RRA's YouTube channel.
Awesome. Thanks,
Thank you,
everybody. Have a
everyone.
great night.
Everyone, good
Thank
night.
you.
Thank you all.